It was a cold winter evening, and the wind outside made soft whistling sounds through the empty streets. Sarah sat on the small chair in her new apartment, looking around. Everything was new and strange. The walls were painted white, and there were no pictures or decorations yet. A small table was in the corner, and a few boxes were stacked near the door. The apartment was quiet, very quiet. She could hear her own breathing. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. She had just moved to this city for her first job, and this was her very first night alone in a new place. She missed her family very much. She remembered her mother cooking in the kitchen and the smell of fresh bread in the morning. She remembered her father reading the newspaper while drinking tea, and her younger brother laughing loudly at small jokes. She missed the warmth of her home, the familiar sounds, and even the small arguments with her brother. Now, all that was gone. The apartment felt empty, and her heart felt heavy. A small tear ran down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. Sarah tried to keep herself busy. She started unpacking some of the boxes. She took out her clothes and folded them neatly, putting them in the wardrobe. She arranged a few books on the shelf, but it still felt strange. She looked at the empty walls and wished she had brought some pictures from home. She made a cup of tea and sat by the small table. The steam from the cup felt comforting, but the silence of the room was louder than ever. She could feel the emptiness surrounding her, and it made her feel smaller. She thought about calling her mother or her best friend. Maybe if she spoke to someone familiar, the loneliness would go away. But then she stopped. She did not want to make anyone worry. They had trusted her to take care of herself and start a new life. She had promised that she would be brave. Still, the fear was there, quiet and heavy. Sarah held the cup of tea close to her chest, trying to feel some warmth, trying to feel less alone. After some time, she walked to the window and looked outside. The city lights were bright and colorful. Cars moved slowly on the streets, and people walked, holding umbrellas against the cold wind. The city was alive, but she felt like she was invisible. Nobody knew her here. Nobody would ask her how she was or if she wanted to join them. She realized that she was completely alone in this big city. A shiver ran down her spine. She wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck and held herself close. Sarah sat on the floor near the window. She hugged her knees and thought about everything she had left behind. She thought about the little moments that had made her happy, like playing in the park with her friends or watching a movie with her family on a rainy evening. She missed all those small things that she had never thought about before. Now, she realized how important they were. The room was silent, and the shadows from the streetlights danced on the walls. Sarah's heart ached with longing. But after a few minutes, she took a deep breath. She reminded herself that she was not weak. She was brave, and she had made this choice to move for her career. She thought about the future, about the possibilities that this new city could bring. Maybe she would meet new friends, learn new things, and discover parts of herself she had never known. She whispered to herself, "I can do this. I am strong." The words sounded small in the empty room, but somehow, they gave her courage. She looked at the small lamp on the table and turned it on. Its soft light filled the room and made it feel warmer. She arranged a few more things on the table: her notebook, a pen, and a small photo of her family. Seeing their faces made her smile a little. She felt a tiny spark of hope. She realized that being alone was not the same as being lonely forever. She could make this place feel like home, little by little. As the night grew deeper, Sarah prepared for bed. She changed into her pajamas and climbed under the warm blanket. She stared at the ceiling and thought about the day. It had been long, quiet, and emotional. She had felt fear, sadness, and longing. But she had also found courage and hope inside herself. She whispered softly to the darkness, "Tomorrow will be better. I will be okay." Finally, her eyes closed, and sleep came slowly. The apartment was still quiet, but Sarah no longer felt completely alone. She had faced her first night in a new city, and she had survived. She understood that life was full of challenges, and each challenge would make her stronger. Even though this night had been very emotional, it had also given her a new beginning, a chance to grow, and a chance to discover herself in a new place. The next morning, Sarah woke up early. The first rays of sunlight came through the small window and lit up the empty room. The walls that had looked cold and strange the night before now looked soft and warm under the morning light. Sarah yawned and stretched, feeling a little more comfortable than she had the night before. She got out of bed and went to the small kitchen. She boiled some water for tea and made herself a simple breakfast of bread and eggs. The smell of the food made her feel more at home. She sat by the window and looked outside again. The streets were full of life now. People walked quickly, carrying bags or hurrying to work. Cars moved in lines, honking occasionally, and the sounds of the city were louder than last night. But now, instead of feeling scared, Sarah felt curious. She wanted to see this new city, to explore it and understand it. She felt a small smile appear on her face. The fear she had felt yesterday had not gone completely, but it was smaller now. Courage was growing inside her. After finishing her breakfast, she put on a warm jacket and went out. The air was cold, but fresh, and it made her feel alive. As she walked down the streets, she noticed small shops and cafes. Some people smiled at her, and she smiled back. She felt a small connection with the city, as if it was welcoming her. She saw a small park with children playing and dogs running. Their laughter and energy made her heart feel lighter. For the first time since she had arrived, she felt that she could belong here. Sarah walked into a small cafe. The smell of coffee and pastries was comforting. She ordered a cup of coffee and a small piece of cake. The shopkeeper smiled at her when she handed the money. "Good morning," he said. Sarah smiled and replied, "Good morning." It was a short conversation, but it made her feel less alone. She realized that even small connections could make a difference. She sat by the window of the cafe, sipping her coffee and watching people pass by. Each person had a story, and now she felt she was a part of the stories in this city too. After leaving the cafe, Sarah continued exploring. She found a small bookstore and spent some time looking at the books. She picked a few that interested her and bought them. The small bookstore felt cozy, and she enjoyed reading the short descriptions on the back of the books. As she walked back to her apartment, she thought about how the city was slowly becoming familiar. The streets, which had seemed confusing yesterday, now felt easier to understand. She was starting to see the beauty in this new place. When she returned home, Sarah felt proud of herself. She had left her apartment, faced the city, and spoken to new people. Her first night had been lonely and emotional, but this morning and afternoon had shown her that life could be better. She realized that being alone was not always bad. It was a chance to learn about herself, to grow, and to become independent. She unpacked a few more boxes and arranged her things. The apartment no longer felt empty. She placed the books on the shelf and a few small decorations on the table. It was starting to feel like her own space. In the evening, Sarah made a simple dinner and sat by the window again. The city lights were shining brightly, but this time, they did not make her feel invisible. Instead, they made her feel connected to the life outside. She realized that everyone had their own challenges, and now she had faced one of her own. She felt stronger and more confident. She understood that the first night had been difficult, but it had taught her something very important. Life was about facing fears, taking small steps, and finding hope even in loneliness. As the night grew darker, Sarah prepared for bed. She felt tired, but happy. She had survived her first night and first day alone in the city. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and smiled. "Tomorrow will be even better," she said softly. She climbed into bed, pulled the warm blanket over herself, and closed her eyes. For the first time, the apartment felt like home. She no longer felt completely alone. She had discovered that courage, hope, and small connections with others could make life beautiful, even in a new place. Sarah fell asleep with a calm heart. She had learned that challenges were not only difficult but also opportunities. Every new day brought new experiences, and she was ready to face them. Her first night had been emotional, her first day had been a small adventure, and she was beginning to feel at peace. She knew that the journey ahead would not always be easy, but she also knew that she could handle it. She had found a small spark of happiness and strength inside herself, and that spark would grow brighter with each new day in her new city. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling more awake and ready for the day. The sunlight filled her small apartment with a warm glow, making the room look less empty and cold. She stretched her arms and took a deep breath. Yesterday had been emotional and a little scary, but today felt different. Today, she wanted to continue exploring and learning about her new life in the city. She quickly got ready and made a small breakfast of tea, bread, and fruit. The food tasted comforting, and she felt a little happier than the day before. After breakfast, Sarah decided to go out and walk to a nearby park. She wanted to feel the fresh air and see people enjoying their morning. The streets were lively. Shopkeepers opened their stores, children ran to school, and people greeted each other as they passed by. Sarah noticed how different this city was from her small hometown. Everything was bigger, faster, and full of energy. She felt both nervous and excited. She had to remind herself to stay calm and enjoy the moment. At the park, Sarah found a bench near a small fountain. The sound of water made her feel peaceful. She watched children playing with their parents and dogs running happily. A little girl waved at Sarah, and she smiled and waved back. She realized that even small gestures could make her feel connected to the world around her. Sitting there, she thought about her family. She missed them, but she understood that she needed to grow and become independent. The park made her feel like a small part of the city, not just a visitor but someone who could belong. While sitting on the bench, Sarah noticed a small cafe at the corner of the park. She decided to go there and have a cup of coffee. The cafe smelled warm and inviting. The barista greeted her with a friendly smile, and she ordered a cappuccino. She sat by the window and watched people walk by. Some were smiling, some were talking on the phone, and some were carrying heavy bags. She realized that everyone had their own story, just like she did. She felt a little less lonely knowing that life was full of people who were also trying their best every day. After finishing her coffee, Sarah walked to a bookstore nearby. She loved books, and reading made her feel at home even when she was far away. She picked up a few books and read the short descriptions on the back. Each book seemed like a small adventure waiting for her. She bought 3 books and carefully put them in her bag. Walking back, she felt proud. She was learning how to enjoy her own company and find happiness in small things. When Sarah returned to her apartment, she unpacked more boxes and arranged her things. She put the books on the shelf, set up her small lamp, and placed a few photos of her family on the table. Her apartment started to feel like her own space. It was no longer just an empty room, it was slowly becoming a home. She realized that making small efforts every day could change her feelings about being alone. The apartment now reflected her personality and gave her comfort. In the afternoon, Sarah decided to cook a proper meal for herself. She tried a simple recipe she had learned from her mother. As she cooked, the smell of food filled the apartment, and she felt proud of herself. Cooking made her feel independent and capable. She ate slowly, enjoying every bite, and thought about how far she had come in just a few days. She realized that even though she had been scared at first, she was now learning to enjoy the small moments of life in a new city. In the evening, Sarah took a short walk around her apartment building. The streets were calmer now, with soft lights and a gentle breeze. She noticed families returning home, friends meeting in small groups, and shopkeepers closing their stores. She felt a sense of belonging. She understood that every day brought small opportunities to feel happy and confident. Even simple things, like talking to someone in a cafe or arranging her room, made her stronger and more independent. When Sarah returned home, she sat by the window and looked at the city lights. They were shining brightly, but now they did not feel intimidating. Instead, they made her feel hopeful. She understood that her first night had been emotional and lonely, but those feelings had taught her something important. Life was about facing challenges, taking small steps, and finding hope even when things seemed difficult. She felt a deep sense of pride in herself. As the night grew darker, Sarah prepared for bed. She changed into her pajamas, pulled the warm blanket over herself, and closed her eyes. She thought about the past few days and realized how much she had grown. She had faced loneliness, explored a new city, and learned to find happiness in small moments. She understood that independence was not just about being alone, but about being brave, learning, and growing every day. Finally, Sarah fell asleep with a calm and happy heart. Her apartment now felt like home, and the city no longer felt strange. She had discovered courage, hope, and strength inside herself. She knew that the journey ahead would have challenges, but she also knew that she could face them. Her first night had been emotional, her first days had been full of learning, and she was ready for whatever the future would bring. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment and peace, knowing that she was becoming stronger and more confident with each passing day.